When we open Genesis chapters 1 through 5, we step into a story that is doing something more subtle than simply introducing a character named Adam. The Hebrew text is carefully pacing the reader, letting the language hover at first between humanity and the human, before the narrative gradually settles into the unmistakable sense of an individual man within a family line. Understanding that movement is one of the quickest ways to read these chapters with fresh eyes. The heart of the issue is the Hebrew word Adam. In English, we're used to treating Adam as a straightforward, proper name from the start, but Hebrew gives us a range of meaning. Adam can mean man in the sense of a human being. It can mean humankind, humanity as a whole. And it can also function as the personal name Adam. The text doesn't place a bright neon sign over the word to tell you which sense is intended every time. And instead, it invites you to pay attention to grammar and context, especially one small but powerful feature: the Hebrew definite article ha, meaning the. That brings us to ha-adam, literally the man or the human. Grammatically, ha-adam is not a proper noun marker. It's simply the normal Hebrew way of saying the before a noun. So when we see ha-adam, the text is not automatically saying, here is the proper name Adam. It is saying, in plain terms, the human or the man. And yet, in a narrative, the man can still refer consistently to the same individual being followed through the scene. The grammar doesn't declare this is a name. The storytelling does the work of identifying the referent. This is why the earliest chapters can feel like they are both universal and personal all at once. In Genesis chapters 1, verses 26 through 27, the spotlight is unmistakably wide angle. Ha-adam is used in a way that reads as humanity, a collective reality made in God's image, expressed in the paired language of male and female. Here, it would be a mistake to insist that ha-adam means the same single male individual every time it appears. In Genesis chapter 1, the term functions as a category, humankind, rather than a named figure in a garden scene. Then, as the text moves into Genesis chapters 2 and 3, the camera zooms in. The repeated appearance of ha-adam now functions like a narrative handle, the man, the particular human being God forms, places, commands, and addresses. In these chapters, ha-adam is very often pointing to the same individual from line to line because the story is following one central human subject through a continuous sequence of actions. But even here, the Hebrew form still reads naturally as a title description rather than a fully locked-in personal name. The language allows the reader to feel the weight of the representative human, the human as a figure who stands for something larger than himself. At a certain point, the text begins to drop the article and use Adam without ha. That is where the question sharpens. Is this now the first true appearance of the proper noun Adam? The honest answer is that the earliest article-less uses can still be read in more than one way. Hebrew can use an article-less noun generically in some constructions, and it can also use an article-less noun as a personal name. So, when the article first disappears, grammar alone doesn't force a single conclusion. What changes is the growing sense that we are moving from the human to this man, personally. This is why many readers find it helpful to distinguish between first name, like usage, and first unmistakable proper name usage. If what you mean is when do we first see Adam, without the article, which is the more typical shape of a proper name. Then candidates appear as early as places like Genesis chapter 2, verses 20b, where a construction can be, well, it can appear without the article. And certainly by Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, where the address formula to Adam is common in English translations as to Adam. But because those earlier occurrences still sit inside a story where Adam can plausibly be heard as the human in context, interpreters differ on how hard the proper name switch has clicked at that point. If, however, what you mean is when does the storyline make it hardest to hear this as generic man and easiest to hear as the personal name Adam, many find that the narrative really lands there in Genesis chapter 4, verse 25, and Adam knew his wife again. By this stage, we are deep into family history, genealogy, and named descendants, and Adam functions naturally as a personal identifier in the flow of the account. In other words, the more Genesis becomes a family record, the more Adam reads like a proper noun, name. Not because Hebrew suddenly invents a special name grammar, but because the context becomes increasingly personal, relational, and genealogical. So then, the story of Adam in Genesis 1 through 5 is not simply a matter of vocabulary. It is a deliberate literary movement. Adam begins as humanity, becomes the human at the center of a sacred drama, and then settles into Adam within a lineage. The text is inviting the reader to hold both truths, the universality of the human story and the particularity of the man in the garden. And once you see that, the early chapters read less like a blunt label, "This is Adam, end of story," and more like a crafted introduction, easing you from the meaning of mankind into the name of a man.
So, where was Adam born?
Yeah, so that's the next part.